Welcome to this edition of When the Biomass Hits the Wind Turbine, a discussion of sustainable living and what that means to you and me. I am Jay Warmke.
And I'm definitely Annie Warmke.
You are definitely Annie Warmke. And today we're going to talk about AmeriCorp and some other stuff, or I will get things done for America to make our people safer, smarter, and healthier, which I took off of the pledge for AmeriCorp.
Wow.
I've got the whole thing written down here. I intend on reciting it at some point during this. And we're joined.
You're scaring me. Whoa.
We're joined by Bryn Sowash. I hope I said that right, Bryn. And
yes.
Bryn, you are the National Service Program Planner at Rural Action, and that's one of those titles that sounds like the amalgamated, consolidated federation of stuff, right? It doesn't really tell me what you do. So Bryn, tell me what you do.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I came on board with Rural Action this year to work with our AmeriCorps team to look at an expansion of our national service program, specifically into climate mitigation and resilience work in this region. So I am planning for this year and then hopefully making it all happen once we sort of establish what we want that to look like.
Well, what got you interested in doing this kind of thing? Because it doesn't seem like a common kind of a job.
Right. I always knew that I wanted to work in some kind of climate job, working on the climate crisis. I just felt that was something I had to do. And my family relocated to the Athens area a couple of months ago, and it lined up really nicely with a grant that Rural Action received over the summer to do this work, to look at how we can expand our program to address the climate crisis and build more community resiliency in the region. So, all of that sort of the stars aligned, and now I'm here, and we're well underway with a pretty significant growth for our AmeriCorps programs, which is exciting.
Can you tell us more about what AmeriCorps is? Because I feel confident that an awful lot of our listeners won't know what that is.
Yeah, for sure. So the best way to describe AmeriCorps is Peace Corp for America. So most people know what the Peace Corps is. AmeriCorps, their motto is getting things done. And AmeriCorps has a number of different ways that people can engage with a term of service. So people are working with, partners across the country to address the challenges that are faced in the communities where they're serving. And that's, going to depend on, obviously if they're in an urban or rural area. Our AmeriCorps program specifically focuses on environmental restoration, building community resilience. We have members helping to create more zero waste initiatives, working with businesses and households to do that. Really, the sky's the limit with what AmeriCorps members can do, and it's sort of up to the organization that's engaging with them to determine what that looks like, as long as it's serving and providing a positive benefit to the community.
Bryn, when I was looking this up, I did find the AmeriCorps Pledge, and
I knew
promised,
it was coming. I knew it.
I promised, and I love it. I love it. It's like being a Boy Scout. It says, I will get things done for America to make our people safer, smarter, and healthier. I will bring Americans together to strengthen our communities. Faced with apathy, I will take action. Faced with conflict, I will seek common ground. Faced with adversity, I will persevere. I will carry this commitment with me this year and beyond. I am an AmeriCorps member. I will get things done. So I guess my question is, Bryn, how's that working out? Because I see the news, and I'm being facetious, because we see a lot of the AmeriCorps, and they are
here at Blue Rock Station. We do a lot with them.
Yeah, they are a bright spot.
Yeah,
an island of hope in a sea of Fox News,
surrounded by reality. That's us. Yes,
right. So it's noble goals, and I think it's great because it gives an outlet for people who really do have that kind of teenage idealism that kind of,
Especially if they like poverty, because they don't really get paid. They just get a stipend.
right. Well, that's
I
part
don't
of,
know. I haven't figured out how
We're trying
everybody
to.
lives with that, but
I think that's part of living in
Yeah,
Athens and being in your 20s. So
yeah. Well, might be living in this country
this is
period for
true.
now. Anyway, we're making light of it, but we are seriously impressed and love the whole concept of AmeriCorps, and we've had so many young people come here from AmeriCorps and known people that are involved in other aspects of rural action working in AmeriCorps, and it's really enlightening and just feels really nice. Anyway, so what I'm interested in is how what you're about to do is so different from Jay giving us his Boy Scout pledge and all that. So how is this different?
Yeah. Okay. So our AmeriCorps program, the way we engage with what's called the State National AmeriCorps program, and it's our corps is called the Appalachian Ohio Restore Corps. So we have 31 members that serve a full year in a plethora of different host sites around the region. So we might have people placed with United Plant Savers or right here at Rural Action working with our sustainable agriculture team. So what we're looking to do with this sort of climate core expansion is introduce a number of different ways that people can engage in a term of service. So we're excited about what we're kind of pursuing with this cohort model. So we've identified 5 kind of key focal points, and those are conservation, agriculture, specifically food waste, education, reuse and reduced waste, and then energy. And across those 5 areas, we've built cohorts that align with the seasonal need for a lot of boots on the ground that will be coming together in small groups to get this work done.
But what's
so we're
a
looking
cohort?
at
What
a
does that mean?
9-week.
What does that mean to be a cohort?
Yeah, so a group of 5 to 7 people that are coming together to, for example, our conservation cohort will have members for a course of about a 3-month term, planting trees, doing trail maintenance, doing a lot of acid mine drainage cleanup and restoration, doing trail maintenance, working on both public and private land to initiate on conservation projects. Within that cohort, those members will additionally go through training and some certifications to be able to further develop their skills so that their next step can be a career in either a green field or something that aligns with, what their interests are and the training that we've provided them. So creating that holistic, experience for folks that are serving.
So I did interrupt you. You were saying something about 9
No,
weeks,
that's
but
okay.
thank you for explaining.
Oh yeah, so a 3-month term, a 9-week term, there's going to be a 6-month term, and sort of depending on the specific focal point, that just shifts a little. So there's lots of options.
Well, it sounds like our internship program, frankly. It's and we see the value of it. It's huge. When you're helping people to live more resiliently and more sustainably, and they do it in community with others, it does change lives. But I'm also wondering, you're using the word climate mitigation, but one of the things that is the government is pushing is more about climate adaptation. What's the difference between the mitigation idea and the adaptation?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we want to do our part to absolutely help communities adapt and become more resilient to the changes that we are facing already. So that's that piece, adapting and making sure that we are strong against that. But we also have a responsibility to do our part when it comes to mitigation. And the definition that we use for mitigation comes out of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, and they define it as a human intervention to reduce emissions or enhance the sinks of greenhouse gases. So we're looking at a lot of the data around what is our region poised to do and what do we have the assets for to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, but also help to sequester. So for example, we're in an agriculturally rich region. We know that implementing conservation practices on farms can help to better improve the soil and the forest lands to then increase the amount of carbon that's being pulled down from the atmosphere. So that's kind of what we're looking at and finding the intersection between those two things. When are we both helping to mitigate and also then helping to build resilience? And a lot of it comes down to economics. If a farmer can implement good conservation practices, then they're helping the environment, but they're also building their resilience to be able to withstand the changes that the climate is bringing. So it's really hitting both of those points.
Well, being a farmer and surrounded by farmers, I have to say that first you'd have to convince them that this is an issue. I think culturally,
yes,
this is an issue. But you talk about our region, when you get out away from the university town of Athens, we're talking about a lot of different types of groups that are not as politically astute or not as progressive in how they think about climate and life in general. And I'm just wondering how you're going to go out into these areas like where we live and push this agenda or share this agenda. How is that going to work?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the piece of community resilience that I think is the most important. So it doesn't matter. We're not having a debate about climate change. What we're doing is making sure that every business and farmer and individual is poised to maintain or grow their economic, wealth, rather as the climate changes. So, we look at food waste is a big area that we're kind of examining right now. And we see that if a farmer can implement practices that are going to help their crops make it through flooding and adapt to the changing growing season, that's going to benefit their business. At the bottom line, let's help people save money. And if we can do that through a conservation practice, then that's great. That's our agenda, and their agenda is, making money. So we can find that balance, and I'm confident that with all of this work, we'll find that. Home weatherization is a big one. A lot of low-income families will qualify for the home weatherization assistance program, meaning the state will help pay for their home to be weatherized. This is great because it's, reducing their energy use, but it's also reducing their monthly bills. So at the end of the day, more money is in their pocket and less energy is coming out of, the grid from non-renewable resources. So that's another sort of, where's the Venn diagram of benefiting both their pocketbook and benefiting the environment? And if we can find that intersection, then I think we're golden.
Yeah, I don't doubt that, but I'm just wondering what is the model to get to that vision, because having spent my career as a community organizer, you're looking at a big section of the state of Ohio in terms of reaching people and a diverse group of people in their thinking, their politics, their life politics. So I'm wondering what is the model or models, I would think more would be the case of how you're going to accomplish this. I mean, what's the first step and where are you going from there?
Yeah, so the neat thing about kind of what we're doing is that we have the groundwork laid, and we've been operating these types of programs from an AmeriCorps standpoint since 2009, but rural action, really in an unofficial form, has been around for nearly 40 years. So with that groundwork and kind of against that backdrop, I think we begin to have community conversations about just what are you seeing happening and changing in the community. I think one of the big things that comes to mind first when we talk to people is flooding. So we talk about what that means. How is that impacting them? What can we do to change that? We can talk about, the changing weather. Okay, so that means that you now have more invasive species growing on your property. So we just start to talk about what we see. And I think it's important to understand that the conversation, even if we are not mentioning, quote, the climate crisis or the climate emergency, all of that is like the underlying tone, and we understand that we're having, that these conversations are sort of circling around that per se. I think the other really big piece of this that it's important to kind of share. I mean, there's this story that we talk about a lot here where a local says, there will never be creek or fish in that creek. There haven't been fish in that creek for decades. And over a 5 to 10 year span, the fish came back as we started to clean up the acid mine drainage. So just start to show the community that we can bring the environment back, that what we're doing is impacting them positively. I think that goes a long way, and it I think often goes further than words. Just
okay. Well, I'm gonna break in here and let people know that you're listening to When the Biomass Hits the Wind Turbine with Jay and Annie Warmke, reminding you it is indeed the end of the world as we know it.
And thank God.
Thank God. Okay, and we're joined today by Bryn Sowash. Bryn, thank you very much. And we're talking a bit about changing the world, one AmeriCorps member at a time. So I know, Bryn, Annie was pushing you there a little bit about, okay, how do you get out of that cocoon of Athens County and spread out throughout the entire state? Talking to a lot of different folks.
It's not the entire state. It's
well,
the
I
region,
know
but it's
region,
huge.
but
yes.
it's a project that needs to be throughout the United States. And I was just thinking, it occurred to me as you were talking that the current supply chain disruption could be a teaching moment, as they like to say, because one of the things we're constantly preaching is local, buying local sourcing. And I think we're beginning to see that buying all your fertilizer from China or whatever is not necessarily the best approach.
Yeah. Well, this is like, let's talk about what we're seeing around us. I think everybody has felt the supply chain issues because I don't even think we realize where everything that our lives touch comes from such a global footprint. So yeah, I mean, we talk about keeping money here in the region, the more we can push local, the more we're supporting small entrepreneurs and small businesses. That's great for the climate. Let's reduce the fossil fuels that are a part of every product that comes into our house, but also, that's benefiting your neighbor. It's benefiting your community. That's huge. I think that our world is probably in a place where we need to really rethink where our things come from, because there are certain things that you just cannot get locally anymore, and that's going to probably have to change.
Well, that would be a good thing, but I want to go back to how you're going to bring this about, because
she's not letting you off the hook.
No,
here.
because okay, so it's one thing to have community conversations, but you have 38 counties in your service area for Appalachia, and for Ohio, part of Appalachia, and so I'm just wondering, how you begin to reach all of these different areas. Whether it's just the 38 counties, okay, so you say the first thing is a conversation. Then what comes after the conversation?
I mean, well, really, so this may be too simple of an answer, but the conversation is ongoing. But as early as August of 2022, our next batch of AmeriCorps members will start. And we're hoping, we have 31 right now. We're hoping by next August, we'll have positions ready for almost 90 people. So we start by bringing people in and just doing the work. We, across all of the programs here at Rural Action, we maintain really great relationships with both private and public landowners. And that's where the work starts. So I think it's, like I said, maybe it's too simple, but it really is here's a shovel and let's go. Let's do it. So the people who are ready to do it.
Right. You're going to place people, AmeriCorps people, in all these different, not all of them, but in strategically placed communities. So It also strikes me that you're going to have to do an awful lot of marketing, because honestly, people don't, they just maybe they don't realize where things come from, but then they don't really care. They just want it. And so we're trying to ask people, at least, I know Appalachia, Ohio, and I know that the barriers that you face are huge. And so I'm just asking myself, my sheepdog brain, I'm a sheepdog in another life, Jay says, right? Organized. I'm always like bringing people together, but I'm just thinking, how to get past, how do we focus on what we have in common enough in this environment that we're in right now, where everything is, you're either with me or you're against me kind of thing.
Right.
How do we move from that to where you want to be with this vision, which is amazing and wonderful, and I support it 5,000,000%.
Right.
But I'm just wondering, how does this go forward? Because I'm familiar with Raccoon Creek, and I used to live there when Raccoon Creek had nothing in it. And, it's taken a lot longer even than 10 years. So I'm just saying, how do we make significant movement in climate adaptation and in getting people to do local instead of buying from Target or Walmart or whatever? How do we get there with the model that you're trying to put in place?
Yeah, the model that we're really looking at is like getting out and doing the work. I think what is more challenging is like the greater movement. How do we change an individual's mind? And with our environmental education programming, I think a lot of it comes to working with youth, and that's honestly that sort of trickle down education into households. It's finding common ground is hard. I do think that what we have going for us right off the bat is a general love for the outdoors in this region. And throughout all of Appalachia, that people grew up in the woods, they go in the woods, they hunt, they, are foraging. Like there is a love for the outdoors, and that goes a long way. So I think we use that. The other thing that I find important, so as we start to work in towns that are receptive to this, people will begin to see, wait a second, this municipality over here has all of these great things happening. Like, we see that is benefiting the people there and the community is thriving. Let's explore that more. And so it's starting to see those things take root and sort of follow along.
So
there's not one straightforward answer.
Yeah, I had a question for you. Let's say that somebody listening to this has a business or a farm or whatever, and they're interested in somehow tapping into this reserve of energy that you guys have with AmeriCorps volunteers. How would I go about doing that? Is it something that has to come through a governmental body, Chamber of Commerce? How do we make this thing happen? Let's say I'm in
Muskingum County.
I'm in McConnellsville, and
Morgan. That's Morgan.
And we've got
County.
this idea. How do we make it happen?
Right. Yeah. So you work with me. What we do leading up to, so we submit a grant for our AmeriCorps programs in early April, and leading up to that time, we are establishing relationships with what we call host sites, places where our AmeriCorps members will do their work. For the Climate Corps, we're also looking at just work sites. So maybe you don't want to engage with Corps members every day for 3 months, but you want them to come do some kind of work with you. We line all of that up. And what then gets kind of written into our grant is sort of a generalization of this is the type of work people would be doing, and here's how we're going to fund it, yada, yada. But it's now that we're saying, okay, where could these folks be working? Who's going to supervise them? What are they going to do on a daily basis? How are we going to ensure project readiness? And those are the conversations that we're having every day throughout, the whole area where we place members.
And they don't have to be a nonprofit, just the ability to create visibility, or?
Yeah, so there's some stipulations around what, the federal government will give us money for. The big thing that's just easy to understand here is that the work AmeriCorps members are doing can't be for-profit, can't be benefiting a for-profit business. Now, that's kind of loose in some ways, especially as you look at like conservation. So we might go on to a private property to restore a creek there because it contributes to the greater watershed, and therefore it's both helping, a region environmentally, but of course the landowner is going to benefit too, because now they're, animals can use that water to drink, whatever it is. So for the most part, we're working with nonprofits. It just depends on what work we're looking at. Our trail maintenance is happening on, we've done a lot of work on the Wayne. We do work with Athens Conservancy. So it varies pretty broadly.
Thanks for that. So before we run out of time, I was wondering if we could talk just a little bit about the coal field development idea of a reuse corridor. I did try to look a little bit of that up, but I didn't really find anything to broaden my knowledge about it. But it's of interest when you use the word reuse corridor. Like, it implies that there's a length of something that involves more than one group or one company or whatever that are coming together in some way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the reuse corridor, and I'm just learning about it myself, stretches through Kentucky, Ohio, West Virginia, and Virginia. So our zero waste team engages with this, along with the Athens Hocking Recycling group and others. And so the effort here is to divert things from waste. So one of our big projects right now is gathering used medical supplies and distributing that to people in need. We do a lot of, hard to recycle material events. So pulling, we gather thousands of mattresses and deal with them because recycling centers have trouble with that, and we don't want them to end up in the landfill. One of the big areas that we're pretty excited about, where we could have a bigger environmental impact related to this reuse corridor, is in refrigerant recycling. So this is ranked really high in terms of, mitigating greenhouse gas emissions. If we could figure out how to get refrigerators and other, air conditioning units out of ditches and into the right hands and recycled, we could have a really, really major impact.
Okay.
The best would be is if we could pay people to bring those. Mm-hmm.
Well, Bryn, the project goes on and on and on, and we're going to have to cut you off right there. We want to thank you. We've been speaking with Bryn Sowash, the National Service Program Planner at Rural Action, fixing the world for us. You have been listening to when the biomass
He's at a loss for words. Never happened.
We want to thank you, and we want to thank our Emmy Award-winning producer Adam Rich. And as your grandmother hopefully told you, the secret to a happy and sustainable life is
play nice with others, zero waste, clean up your own mess, and eat your veggies, Jay.
All right, till next time. Bye-bye.
Blossom in the night, know the stars dancing in the twilight. Soon we'll be together, all will be revealed. Mother Earth will sing, and the children will be healed.
You can find more information on living sustainably in our unsustainable world at bluerockstation.com.